You know that feeling when you're scrolling through endless drum sets, trying not to drop $100 on something that ends up collecting dust in the corner? You want the sound that'll make your bedroom feel like a rehearsal space, but you also need to be sure the kit won't break the bank or force you to buy a mountain of extra gear. It's a classic case of don't waste money on the wrong thing, and, honestly, the fear of that regret is why I always double-check before I hit add to cart. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's talk about the Gretsch Renown RN2 J483 3-piece shell pack in that eye-catching satin antique blue burst. At first glance it looks like a set that's trying to strike a balance between the polished look of a professional kit and the affordability that a hobbyist needs. The rating on Amazon sits at a solid 4.8 out of 5 from nearly 3,000 reviewers, which tells me most people who've actually taken it home are happy enough to give it a thumbs up. That doesn't mean it's flawless, but it does set a high bar for a mid-range package. If you're the kind of player who practices a few hours a week, maybe gigs a local open mic, and you already own a basic throne and a pair of cymbals, this is the kind of kit that can slot right into that setup without feeling like a compromise. The 18-inch bass drum gives you a punchy low end that's surprisingly warm for its size. You'll notice it more in folk rock or indie tunes than in a metal breakdown, but it's versatile enough to sit comfortably in most genres that don't demand a massive, booming sub-kick. The 12-inch mounted tom and 14-inch floor tom keep the overall footprint tight, which is a real plus if you're squeezing a kit into a bedroom or a small rehearsal room. Now, who should actually consider buying this? First, beginners who have already invested in the basic cymbals, a drum throne, a pedal will find the Renown pack a logical next step because it provides a cohesive shell set without forcing you to start from scratch. Second, gigging musicians who need a reliable backup kit that's easy to transport can benefit from the relatively lightweight shells and the fact that the hardware is already mounted. Finally, anyone who loves that vintage Gretsch look will appreciate the satin antique blue burst finish. It adds a visual vibe that makes you want to play just to show it off. Who should skip it? If you're hunting for a full-size, 22-inch bass drum to dominate a heavy rock sound, you'll feel limited. Likewise, if you're a session drummer who needs a larger tom range, say, a 10-inch rack tom or a 16-inch floor tom, you'll quickly outgrow the 12 and 14-inch pair. And if you expected a complete package with pedals, throne, and cymbals, you'll be disappointed. The Renown is a shell pack, which means you'll need to budget for those essentials separately. That upfront cost can catch first-time buyers off guard if they assume everything's included. Let's drill down into the practical strengths that actually matter once the kit is set up. The first thing I noticed on a recent tryout was how quickly the shells settle after a few tuning sessions. Gretsch uses a combination of maple and birch layers, and that blend translates into a warm mid-range that doesn't sound thin when you hit the snare. The bass drum's resonance is tight enough that you can get a solid thump without excessive boom, which is perfect for recording in untreated rooms where a booming kick would overwhelm the mic. The mounting hardware on the 12-inch tom feels solid, no wobble when you strike hard, and the floor tom's legs lock in securely, so you won't be fighting the kit for stability during a fast fill. On the downside, the hardware that does come with the pack is very much basic. The included lugs are functional, but they lack the fine adjustment knobs you find on higher-end kits, meaning you'll spend a bit more time finding the sweet spot for each drum. The bass drum's beater slot is designed for a standard beater, but the shell's depth can make double bass pedals feel a little cramped, so if you plan on using double pedals you might need to tweak the footboard or consider a different bass size. Also, the 14-inch floor tom, while great for a compact setup, can sound a bit short on the low end compared to a 16-inch counterpart, which some drummers notice when playing genres that rely on a deep floor tom tone. One hidden trade-off that shows up after you actually start playing is the need for proper muffling. The shells are resonant, which is great for that classic Gretsch warmth, but in a small apartment that resonance can bleed into walls and annoy neighbors. A quick solution is to add a few simple muffling rings or a pad under the bass drum, and that's a small extra expense that most buyers